What if you woke up tomorrow morning and the internet was just gone? No warning, no countdown, no news alert, because there is no news alert. Your phone screen stares back at you like a blank eye. The Wi-Fi symbol spins and spins and spins. You refresh the page, nothing. You restart the router, nothing. You call a friend. Wait, can you even call anyone? You open Google Maps to get directions. The screen just says, no connection. The internet. The invisible backbone of everything you do, everything you buy, everywhere you go, everyone you love. Gone. Not down for maintenance, not a temporary outage. Forever. Before we go any further, if you're the kind of person who lies awake thinking about civilization-ending scenarios, technological collapse, and what would actually happen if, then this channel is built for you. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we explore exactly these kinds of questions every single week. And trust me, by the end of this video, you will never take your Wi-Fi signal for granted again. Now, let's dive in. Most people assume the internet disappearing would feel like a bad day. Slow morning, can't scroll TikTok, Netflix won't load. Annoying. Manageable. They are catastrophically wrong. In the first 60 seconds after a permanent global internet shutdown, here's what actually happens. Stock markets crash. Not because investors panic, but because trading systems themselves are automated, running on fiber optic networks and real-time data feeds. With zero connection, algorithms can't execute, brokers can't communicate, and the entire global financial infrastructure goes into emergency freeze mode. In New York, London, Tokyo, Frankfurt, billions of dollars of transactions stop mid-execution, hanging in digital limbo that no longer exists. Air traffic control systems in dozens of countries go offline. Planes already in the sky are not immediately in danger. Aircraft have independent navigation, but ground communication between towers and pilots, between airports and airlines, between airlines and fuel suppliers, all of it, dead. Within hours, airports worldwide begin grounding flights, not because they want to, because they have to. Emergency services, 911, 112, 999. Many of them now run on internet-dependent VoIP systems. In cities that have modernized their dispatch centers, emergency calls begin failing. People having heart attacks dial frantically. Nothing connects. And this all happens in 60 seconds. Let's talk about money, because this is where the average person's life begins to genuinely unravel. The modern banking system is not a vault full of gold bars with your name on a little sticky note. It's a vast, interconnected network of servers, real-time settlement systems, and cryptographic verification protocols, all of which communicate exclusively through the internet. Without it, every ATM in the world stops working. You walk up, insert your card, and the machine can't verify your balance, can't communicate with your bank, can't authorize a single transaction. The screen shows one word: unavailable. Credit cards? Same story. Point-of-sale terminals at every restaurant, every supermarket, every gas station. They all require internet connectivity to process payments. Within hours of the shutdown, the entire cashless payment ecosystem collapses completely. Now here's where it gets frightening. Most people in developed nations carry almost no physical cash. In Sweden, less than 10% of transactions were made in cash even before the pandemic. In the UK, the average person carries less than £12 in cash at any given time. In the United States, surveys show roughly 41% of Americans make zero cash purchases in a typical week. What happens when those people try to buy food? Supermarkets can still function, the products are on the shelves, the cashiers are there, but payment is impossible unless you have physical cash. And the cash in your wallet? Better make it last. Because banks can't operate, ATMs are down, and there is no way to withdraw more. Within the first 24 hours, the first lines form. Not at restaurants, not at cinemas, at the few remaining businesses that can execute cash, at the small local stores with mechanical tills that have never been updated. And people begin to realize, for the first time in decades, that all the wealth on their phones, in their bank apps, in their investment portfolios is, for right now, completely inaccessible. Here's something most people never think about. How does food get to a supermarket? The answer involves something called supply chain logistics, a system so deeply dependent on the internet that without it, the entire thing grinds to a halt within days. Modern shipping and distribution is coordinated through GPS tracking, digital inventory management, automated warehouse systems, and real-time communication between suppliers, distributors, and retailers. Every truck on every highway is tracked. Every pallet in every warehouse is cataloged digitally. Every delivery is scheduled through software. Without the internet, supply chain managers can't track where their trucks are. Warehouses can't process inventory. Supermarkets can't place orders with suppliers. Distribution centers can't receive instructions. The entire just-in-time delivery system, which keeps supermarket shelves stocked with exactly the right amount of products, replenished exactly when they run low, collapses. It starts slowly. Day 1, shelves look normal. Day 2, a few gaps appear. Day 3, whole sections are empty. Bread, milk, fresh produce. By day 5, the shelves in most urban supermarkets are stripped bare. Not because food doesn't exist, farms still have grain, factories still have canned goods, but because the coordination system that moves food from production to shelf no longer functions. Cities face a terrifying reality. Most urban areas have roughly a 3-day supply of food in their local distribution networks. 3 days. Rural areas fare slightly better. Farms produce their own food. Local communities have more direct access to production. But cities? Major metropolitan areas like New York, London, Shanghai, they are almost entirely dependent on a constant, unbroken flow of supply chain logistics. And that flow has stopped. Beyond logistics and finance, there's something even more personal that collapses: human connection. Think about how you communicate with the people you love. Text messages, over the internet, WhatsApp, iMessage, Telegram, internet. Social media, internet. Email, internet. Video calls with family overseas, internet. Even traditional phone calls, in many cases, are now routed over voice-over internet protocol systems. The internet disappearing doesn't just disconnect you from entertainment and services, it disconnects you from people. Imagine having a family member living abroad, a parent, a sibling, a child. When the internet goes down, you can't reach them. You don't know if they're safe. You don't know what's happening where they are. The silence on the other end of a dead WhatsApp chat is terrifying in a way that's hard to describe until you're living it. Traditional landlines, the old copper wire telephone networks, would still work in countries where they still exist. But millions of households have abandoned landlines entirely over the last decade. In the US, nearly 70% of adults live in households with no landline phone at all. So how do you reach someone across an ocean? You write a letter. You wait days or weeks. In a crisis situation, that's not just inconvenient, it's agonizing. And this psychological dimension of internet collapse is often underestimated in collapse scenarios. It's not just that services stop working, it's that the fabric of daily human connection, the constant low-level awareness that your loved ones are a message away, tears apart. The world becomes, very suddenly, a much larger and lonelier place. But here's where the story gets interesting, because human beings don't just collapse when systems fail. We adapt. History is full of examples. We've survived plagues, wars, famines, the collapse of entire empires. We are, as a species, remarkably good at restructuring when we have to. So what does a post-internet society actually look like 1 month in? Cash becomes king almost immediately. Governments worldwide rush to print more physical currency. Banks begin manually processing transactions, yes, with paper forms, like it's 1975. Slow? Absolutely. Impossible? No. Within a few weeks, basic banking functions resume through manual processes. Local economies surge. Farmers markets, local producers, neighborhood stores, anyone with direct access to goods and the ability to transact in cash becomes essential. The hyper-globalized economy, in which your phone is assembled in China, your coffee grown in Ethiopia, and your food packaged in 3 different countries, begins to localize rapidly, not by choice, but by necessity. Radio makes a comeback. AM and FM radio, which requires no internet connection, becomes the primary medium for information distribution. Governments begin broadcasting emergency information. Local stations provide community updates, and people who still own radios become neighborhood information hubs. Old-fashioned communication technologies, telegrams, fax machines, even shortwave radio get dusted off and pressed back into service. Transportation adapts. Airlines don't disappear, aircraft still fly, pilots still know how to navigate, mechanics still know how to fix engines. But flight operations slow dramatically as ground communication systems rebuild using non-internet alternatives. Radio, satellite-based systems that don't rely on the public internet, and direct line communication. Within a month, a reduced but functioning aviation network begins to emerge. And perhaps most surprisingly, communities get tighter. People who never spoke to their neighbors suddenly know their names. Local mutual aid networks form organically. People share resources, skills, and information face-to-face in ways that feel, to many of them, surprisingly meaningful. Now let's zoom out, way out. If the internet stays gone permanently, how does civilization reorganize itself over years and decades? The answer is, we rebuild, but differently. The knowledge that built the internet doesn't disappear with the internet itself. Engineers still know how to build networks. Programmers still know how to write code. The fundamental physics, the fiber optic cables buried under oceans, the hardware sitting in server farms, all of it still exists. What's gone is the coordination layer, the global agreement to be connected. Within a year, local internets begin emerging. Regional networks built from existing fiber infrastructure create connectivity within cities, within countries, without necessarily connecting to a global system. Think of it like the difference between a local road network and an international highway system. Local roads still work even if the global system collapses. Healthcare transforms profoundly. Modern medicine is intensely reliant on digital records, remote diagnostics, and pharmaceutical supply chains coordinated through the internet. In the short term, this creates genuine crises, but in the long term, medicine relocalizes. Hospitals develop physical record systems, local pharmacies stock broader ranges of essential medications, and communities invest more heavily in local medical capacity. Education transforms too. Schools shift back to in-person models, not reluctantly, but because they have to. Books, libraries, and human teachers suddenly matter enormously again. The multi-billion-dollar ed tech industry vaporizes overnight, but students still learn. In many ways, the personalized, physical, human experience of learning that technology had been slowly eroding comes rushing back. And politically, the power of nation-states rises dramatically. In a world without global internet, international communication is harder, slower, and more controlled. Information doesn't travel at the speed of light anymore. Propaganda is harder to spread, but so is truth. Authoritarian governments, paradoxically, might find a post-internet world easier to control. Democratic movements that rely on social media to organize, think the Arab Spring, think protest movements across dozens of countries, lose a critical tool. The geopolitical implications of a permanent internet shutdown are in some ways the darkest part of this entire scenario. But let me tell you something that might surprise you. In this catastrophe, this total collapse of the system we've built our entire modern world around, there are things that people consistently say in surveys and studies about digital detox, about offline life, about simpler living, that they miss when they have the internet and find when they lose it. Boredom. Real, genuine boredom. The kind that used to force creativity. Kids building things from wood and tape and imagination. Adults staring out windows, letting their minds wander, stumbling into ideas they never would have had while scrolling. Presence. The feeling of being fully in a moment, a meal, a conversation, a sunset, without the background hum of notifications and updates, and the constant awareness of what everyone else is doing everywhere else on Earth. Depth. Relationships that require effort, actual phone calls, actual letters, actual visits, that turn out to be richer and more nourishing than the shallow, rapid-fire digital interactions that replaced them. And time. People consistently report, when disconnected from the internet, that they feel like they have more time. Because they do. The average person spends 6 to 7 hours a day on internet-connected screens. That time comes back, and people don't know what to do with it at first. And then they figure it out. And it turns out often to be something quite beautiful. This is not an argument for losing the internet. What I'm describing here is a catastrophe. Make no mistake. People would die. Economies would collapse. Supply chains would fail. Millions would suffer in the transition. But buried inside that catastrophe is a question worth sitting with. What did we lose when we gained all of this? Now, is this actually possible? Could the internet really just disappear? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Yes, in multiple different ways. Solar storm. In 1859, a massive solar storm called the Carrington event struck Earth, destroying telegraph systems across North America and Europe. If an event of equivalent magnitude struck today, the resulting geomagnetic disturbance could fry the electronic components of satellites, undersea cables, and internet infrastructure on a global scale. Scientists estimate there's roughly a 12% chance of a Carrington-level solar event occurring within the next decade. Coordinated cyber attack. The internet's physical infrastructure, the undersea cables, the major data centers, the DNS root servers that allow domain names to function, is more vulnerable than most people realize. A coordinated attack by a sophisticated state actor targeting the handful of critical nodes that route the majority of global internet traffic could cause cascading failures on a scale that might take years to repair. Global conflict. In a world at war, internet infrastructure becomes a primary target. Undersea cables, which carry over 95% of all international internet traffic, can be cut. Satellites can be destroyed. Data centers can be bombed. In a sufficiently destructive global conflict, the internet as a unified global system could be destroyed, leaving only fragments. Regulatory fragmentation. This one is slower, but arguably the most likely. Already, the global internet is fracturing. China operates its own walled-off version. Russia is building parallel infrastructure. Iran blocks external networks. If this trend continues, the global internet as a unified entity might simply cease to exist, not with a bang, but with a slow, quiet splintering. So, what if the internet disappeared forever? The answer is, everything changes. Instantly, catastrophically, irreversibly. And then, slowly, surprisingly, differently. We would suffer. We would mourn. We would lose things that genuinely matter, connections to people we love, access to knowledge that saves lives, tools that have made human existence measurably better in countless ways. And then we would adapt, because we always have. Because underneath the algorithms and the apps and the infinite scroll, there is still a human species that knows how to build fire, how to grow food, how to find each other in the dark, how to tell stories, how to make meaning from chaos. The internet is extraordinary. It is one of the most remarkable things human beings have ever created. But it is a tool, an incredibly powerful, world-changing, life-defining tool, built on physical infrastructure, maintained by human beings, and ultimately, fragile. The question isn't really, what if it disappeared? The question is, knowing that it could, how would you want to live differently right now? If this video made you think, even a little, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content, and we're building a community of people who want to think seriously about the world we're living in. Subscribe, because next week we're asking, what if electricity itself disappeared? What if money became worthless overnight? What if gravity suddenly got weaker? The answers will surprise you, and maybe disturb you, in the best possible way. See you in the next one.